Well, we've been following very closely the story in Serbia, where tensions are rising once again. Over the weekend, stun grenades thrown at EU police in North Kosovo, and Serbs police opened fire on each other, according to reports in Western media. What's the truth of what's happening in Serbia? For that, we turn to Serbian journalist Tesha Teshanovic, who's a friend of the show. Nice to have you back on the show.
Nice to have you to be here also.
Well, we love to cut through the BS of the Western media. So we saw reports, of course, in the BBC and other places about rising tensions, about Serbs fighting against police, firing weapons. What can you tell us, first of all, what's going on? And then we'll kind of dive into the why of it all.
Well, currently you have a barricade in the north of Kosovo. Just to give you a little bit of a context, there are ethnical divisions in Kosovo, and north of Kosovo is mostly populated by ethnic Serbs who basically don't recognize the independence of Kosovo. And during the last 15 years, ever since the unilateral declaration of independence of Kosovo, there have been attempts to integrate the North Kosovo into the judicial and political system of the state of Kosovo. And because that part of the state hasn't been fully integrated, there are now attempts by the prime minister of the so-called Kosovo, Mr. Kurti, to forcefully integrate those Serbs into the system that they don't want to be part of. And as a part of that integration, there are attempts to impose the so-called license plates of the state of Kosovo and the many other things. And because of that, the Serbian ethnic community in the north of Kosovo has started. First, they have decided to quit all of the institutions of Kosovo because until recently, Serbs were employed by the state institutions of the state of Kosovo as part of the police, as part of the judicial system, as part of the local municipalities. So the Serbs have decided to leave that system because they see that within that system there is a strong bias for discrimination of the ethnic Serbs, and now they have created some sort of barricades in order to protect their own interests from the attacks of the special forces of state of Kosovo. That there are great tensions there on the field in the North Kosovo, but the tensions themselves are nowhere near as the Western media are showing or reporting.
So it seems, once again, they're saying, of course, if you read the BBC, they're massive unrest. It's really on the verge of war. That's what we keep hearing. NATO has peacekeeping troops, quote unquote, peacekeeping troops in Kosovo, calling on all parties to avoid provocations. So what is their mission here? What is their goal? What is NATO's goal in all of this, sticking their nose once again inside of Serbia?
There were some media reports that there are possibilities of a false flag attacks in following days in Kosovo, that someone, we don't know who, it might be Albanians, it might be some Serbs who are paid, we don't know, will pose as extremists from one side, let's say extremists from a Serb side, and will attack NATO or EU police forces in Kosovo, causing the spiral of conflict to further spread out. So there is a possibility that someone will create artificial conflict in Kosovo with the pretext of false flag attacks. And the thing that I'm saying now was said by the Minister of Defense of Serbia, who has warned the public of the possibilities of the false flag attacks by the info that was received by intelligence services of Serbia. So for those reasons, it is very important for all actors to keep calm. But if you ask for my personal opinion, I don't think that there will be any kind of a war or armed conflict or any kind of a escalation at this point. I think that this whole process that we see now in Kosovo is more controlled than we think. And then I think that there is a lot of backdoor diplomacy between both sides and the EU that is unseen at this moment. But if you ask for a context, why is this happening now? It is very clear. We have inside the Schengen zone and European Union, we have inflation, we have the energy crisis, we have the problem with the refugees from the Ukraine crisis. We have the billions and billions going to arm a conflict that the West is now taking part in Ukraine. And because of that, we need some kind of a false flag attacks and decoys from that.
So Tesha, then what do you think is the goal then of this false flag attack? I mean, we've heard this repeatedly in other countries. We know these false flag attacks happen. NATO, the United States, is very good at putting out these false flags, putting protesters in, who stir up violence, who attack quote unquote peaceful police who are there as peacekeepers, and then of course everything spirals out of control and they use that as a justification for a broader invasion. So is that the larger goal here, some sort of a larger presence of NATO forces once again in Serbia?
Yeah, like you have said it yourself, it is basically a textbook scenario. First you create a problem and then you position yourself as a problem solver. I guess the only way to increase the presence of NATO troops and to get, for example, for Congress to approve more, for example, bigger military budget for the Balkans or some extra military bases here or something like that, is to have a crisis here. And because you don't have really a crisis at this moment, because no matter how bad the relations between so-called state of Kosovo, Serbia, or other ethnic groups in the region are, they are not as near as bad as someone in Washington, D.C., or someone in the depths of these states wants it to be. So I guess that if you create a false flag attack, and if then on the other side some people act with more temper than they should and react to those attacks with violence, we could create a very dangerous scenario. They could create a very dangerous scenario that could lead to some like additional bases, maybe extra military installations here, or whatever is their goal.
What is the comments from the President Vucic? What has he said about this? Do you get the sense that, because according to the BBC, President saying that he wants to diffuse the situation, is he doing enough to diffuse the situation?
Actually, to be honest, President Vucic has been very cooperative. The reason why and that's a thing that I personally don't agree on, but one of the reasons why we don't have more tensions in Kosovo is that because after the 2014 and the signing of the so-called Brussels Agreement, Serbia has decided to give up a lot of its soft claims to the territory of Kosovo and Metohija. They have signed a series of agreements where they have given up on the municipalities that are controlled by Serbian state. They have given up on Serbian police. They have given up on the idea that Serbian institutions should have a foothold on Kosovo. And because of that, at this point, the Albanian side have gotten from the Serbian side almost like 90% of the things that they have asked. So Serbia has been actually more than it should be cooperative so far when it comes to this. And when it comes to the last disagreement between the governments in Pristina and Belgrade, the disagreement on license plate, Serbia has decided to listen to the demands of the Albanian side and to give up on its own license plates that have a coat of arms of Serbia and that have this RS signage that is connected to the Serbian statehood. So Serbia has done all that it's good, but the tensions keep going on. And why is the Albanian side doing this? Well, it's a known strategy of moving the so-called overtone window. You create an escalation, then as a demand, so you would return to the status quo, you ask from the other side to do some kind of a concession. Then when that side gives you a concession, you leave things as they are for a month or two, then you have another escalation and some other issue that you haven't agreed on, and the overtone window moves eventually towards the Kosovo independence. So that is basically the whole strategy of Albin Kurti as a Prime Minister of Kosovo.
So Tesha, you talked about the Kosovo prime minister, and he described these protesters as criminal gangs, and wants the NATO-led peacekeeping Kosovo force to step in, remove these barricades. Does that seem like a smart move?
Well, it's a move that could lead to the possible escalation because those people there don't have any kind of a military force behind them. The Serbian military hasn't been on Kosovo ever since the end of the Kosovo War and the Kumanovo Agreement that has ended the NATO bombing of Serbia. And now they don't even have their own police since the police has been integrated into the Kosovo police. So the only way that they can protest against the decisions that they consider discriminatory is by civil disobedience. And barricades, strikes are known acts of civil disobedience for, like a century or two. So that's the only weapon that those people have. And if you remove them that weapon, if you tell them it's illegal for you to show any kind of to create any kind of a civil strike or to be disobedient towards our state organs, I guess that could lead to the part of the Serbs maybe radicalizing or trying to find some kind of a different answer to the solution that wouldn't be good for the peace on Kosovo and for the both sides. So it's a very actually aggressive move. They haven't removed any kind of a military installation or anything similar. It's just citizens protesting by the rights that are provided by their own constitution.
Well, Tesha, thank you so much for your analysis, your insights on this, and please come back often, and we'll keep our eye on this potential false flag attack. At least getting the message out there so cooler heads can prevail. I think that's so important with a lot of these false flag attacks lately. By having independent media covering the potential for these false flag attacks, it seems to really be throwing a wrench into the works of these attacks. I think social media and being able to do these stories really, really helps. So my thanks to you for joining us as always. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.